The February 21st meeting of the Planning Board, Scarborough Planning Board, will please come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's call the roll, Doreen, please.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Here.
Rick Meinking,
Here.
Jim Hebert,
Here.
and Noah Hurley.
Noah, can you hear us?
Hey, yeah, sorry,
We're calling the roll. Are you here?
I'm here.
Very good. We have a quorum in that case. Because of the absence of three of the board members, Noah Perlett and Jim Hebert are alternates, will both be voting members at this meeting. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for January 20th, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. We've heard motion in a second. Doreen, please call the roll.
Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Rick Meinking,
Yes.
Jim Hebert,
Aye.
and Noah Hurley.
Yes,
Minutes are approved. Thank you very much. For the information of the folks in the audience and online, item 4.02, the None Such Properties has requested that their application be tabled at this time, so we will not be hearing that application tonight. We'll instead start with 4.01. O-Pee-Chee Construction Corporation is requesting a site plan review for a temporary gravel stockpile at 200 Scarborough Drive. Assessors map R037, lot 48E. Eric?
Thank you. So Peachy Construction is in front of the planning board with a site plan for a stockpile that's anticipated to be used as a preload for a project which would require further site plan review from the planning board. Staff has included some comments on general preload details and erosion control measures that are desired for the plan sets to protect the Red Brook watershed. Since this use would be temporary, the town would require the applicant to provide a performance guarantee for removal of the stockpile if a future site plan does not move ahead. And with that, I would turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And for the construction company. It's been, the applicant has voluntarily tabled that application. We'll not hear it tonight. Mhm. For those of you online, just in case you missed it, the None Such Brewing application for a parking lot has been voluntarily tabled for this meeting, so we will not be hearing it at this time. For the construction company. Please give us your name and your position in the company.
Thank you. Hi, Maureen McGlone. I'm with Ransom Consulting, representing O-Pee-Chee tonight. I am the program manager for the civil and coastal design team within Ransom. Also with me tonight is David Shearburn from O-Pee-Chee Construction, if there are any questions with regard to future plans. So I guess as Eric had mentioned, this is really probably one of the hopefully at least controversial site plans I've done. But it's we're looking to put in the gravel preload for what might become a new building. The geotechnical engineer, after having reviewed the geotech reports from both the Homewood Suites as well as the Sebago Brewing, had requested that perhaps we do something of a little bit outside the box and do a bit of a field consolidation study rather than a lab consolidation study, whereby we'll put the preload on. They're going to do some evaluations. They're going to monitor it on a weekly basis and then make recommendations as they move forward, which could either be additional preload or design considerations for the proposed structure. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. This is an item that is subject to a public hearing. Is there anybody in the room or online who would like to make a comment on this application? Angela, do you get to you get to be the person who looks?
There's no hands raised online.
All right, in that case, declare the hearing closed, public hearing closed. Let me start this with a couple of questions.
Please.
You said that there was a study done on this, on the soil. I don't see it in the application.
No, the studies that were done for the geotechnical work for the hotel itself and Sebago Brewing, when those hotels were going in, they had done a preload for Homewood Suites, and I think they went with a different methodology for Sebago. But when the geotech engineer was looking over the results of that preload for the Homewood Suites, he felt as though it didn't necessarily inform the consolidation that they were expecting or that they would expect to see. So they wanted to do a little bit more research with this pad.
But we don't have that research.
No, this is going to be a field study to kind of do the research. Are you asking for the preload information from the Homewood Suites?
Well,
Okay.
you've cited a study
Okay,
that leads you to say that this is an acceptable way to proceed.
okay,
So it certainly is something that we need.
okay. I will look to see if,
Now, the size of the preload that you're proposing to put in,
Mhm.
and you're talking about a hotel on there, what's the size of the hotel, the footprint of the hotel versus the footprint of the preload?
the size of the hotel is roughly the top of the preload pad, and then it extends 10 feet out with a 2-to-1 side slope. So the preload will be about 5 feet deep and 2-to-1 side slopes out. So the hotel roughly is the 64 by 209.
Do you have the sketch plan for the hotel? If you haven't submitted it to us,
Well, we have not. We have not submitted that.
typically when we are asked for preload, we are asked after we have seen the sketch plan
Exactly,
for the building that will go on top of it.
exactly.
And that is my recommendation before you proceed. That we need to see that rather than you're talking about a hotel that may or may not go on there.
Which is why we framed this as a gravel stockpile at this point.
We typically don't allow gravel stockpiles. In other words, we have preloads in other places. You're asking us, in a sense, to buy a pig in a poke, that you're going to put a gravel stockpile down with a hope that it actually leads to a building sometime in the future with a footprint that doesn't quite conform, is close, but doesn't quite conform to the size of the gravel stockpile. That's not something that we've done before. It's not something we would typically do. But I am going to pass this to the other members of the committee of the planning board to see if they have some additional thoughts on the subject. Rick?
Yeah, typically when we're given something that's starting from the ground up, we get a site analysis for the particular site. So really, I don't have the information. Is it forested there? This was going to be a site of a car wash, wasn't it?
Yes, and that application was withdrawn.
It was
back
withdrawn,
in
but
2022.
there's vegetation there, right? Existing vegetation?
Not a whole lot. I believe it's fairly clear in this area.
Right, there's, Sebago has, a gravel parking lot, that they're been
Okay,
leasing.
yeah.
Yep. So beyond that gravel parking lot, there's a large pile of loam that had been left over from the Homewood Suites and Sebago construction. That's got grass growing on it and some vegetation. But in the area that we're proposing, there's grass, but there's not a lot of,
Yeah.
there's not huge trees or anything.
I don't know, Madam Chair, I think before I give a thumbs up, it's kind of like giving a thumbs up right now without having a vision of, yeah, we could just throw some dirt in a big pile. But will that lead to anything? And the impact that it's going to have in transportation of all the soil and stuff or the gravel to make this gravel pile. I would feel a little more comfortable if we did have that study or the outcome of what you're looking for from doing this study. And we had some sort of an idea of why we're loading this area with gravel. That's just where I'm coming from. I mean, I think it can all get worked out. I just think that getting this before we even have a site analysis and inventory just seems a little bit ahead of the game. That's it.
Thank you. Jim?
I have a question for you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair. If we typically, would we have we seen a conceptual plan or rendering of what they're proposing for this site prior to receiving this? Okay, I guess directed more towards the applicant now. What I would like to see is, in addition to the comments by the other board members, is just to see what the full site would look like conceptually.
Okay.
Your entry and exits from Payne Road or otherwise, how access would be generally conceptually, what parking is going to be like for that space, just to get the whole picture of what it is right now. And as an engineer myself, I understand the necessity and of preloading an area before you start pouring slab and putting a building on it. What I would like to see is what the actual building is going to be and going to look like. I've gathered it's going to be a hotel, but I would just like to know just sort of conceptually massing, rough approximate quantity of parking spaces, and what the traffic route's going to be looking like in and out of that.
Okay. So, yeah, that all makes sense. There's, we are in the process of coming up with that and finalizing that conceptual plan. All of the traffic is going to be routed through the existing Southborough Drive entrance so that we're not going to be having traffic going in and out of Payne Road, with the exception of maybe construction vehicles off the existing curb cuts.
Sure.
The idea with the preload also was that we'd bring gravel to the site, all the while removing the loam pile that was left there after the 2007, 2008 construction of the Homewood and Sebago. So that's, another consideration that would want to be removing that pile as well. Certainly, we can submit a conceptual site plan.
And I brought a hard copy of the conceptual. I can share that with the.
Yep, okay.
While we appreciate it, and we'll take a look at it, that needs to be submitted in the appropriate fashion as well.
Thank you for this. So I guess from my standpoint, I'd like to see this incorporated as part of our packet, potentially for our next meeting, or as soon as this and any other piece of information that my fellow board members are requesting. I would like to see all of that together.
Okay.
And time to review prior to making any, for me anyways, feel comfortable seeing that before making any decision on it.
Well, and I think David Sherborne, I'm architect and vice president of OPG. So we know that this is a unique scenario that we have here. And that's when we saw the staff memo recommending the performance guarantee, that we felt comfortable with that, because I know there may be concerns about, hey, we're replacing the loom pile with gravel on the site, that there's a timeframe tied to that. So if the hotel didn't go ahead, or we didn't get approval with that site plan application, that the site would be brought back to its current state. And so we're hoping that going down that path, knowing that there are some unknowns, and we're working through those details, and there will be a full site plan application in the coming month, that would make the board comfortable with approving this, knowing that there is a guarantee in place that would rectify if we didn't get the approval and moved ahead with the hotel itself. And then in terms of the quantity of gravel that's been brought to site, it's tight, it's matched up, and it's been sized to fulfill the need for the gravel needed for the actual development when we go to do that. So we're not bringing excess in that has to be trucked off. It's bringing in enough that as part of this test and reload that would then be utilized in the construction of the site and the hotel itself. So we're hopeful that although it's unique and we know that it's an at risk, but it's designed to help expedite on the construction side and get the ball rolling, and the town would be comfortable that we're taking the steps necessary to make you feel comfortable with the guarantee in place that that we could move ahead down this path.
You mentioned something that I'm just a little puzzled by. You mentioned that the current loam would be trucked out.
Yes.
I'm not sure I saw that in your application.
So
It's right on the plan. There's a note that's saying remove pile. It actually is not showing up there. You can move that up a little bit higher.
Yeah, it's on sheet C101.
All right, glasses go on now.
Time for the big guns.
All right, got it. Thank you.
I saw Noah's hand up, Madam Chair, if you want to go to Noah. Noah's hand is
Yeah,
up.
well, I was just going to see if you had any additional questions, and if you don't, then we'll go to Noah.
Not at this moment. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Noah?
Hi, thank you. So I had two questions. The first, Rick had already asked about what the current conditions are of the property, but then my second question is, can you please tell us about how water moves off of this property? And particularly how that affects the brook? And importantly, how that water would be moving with the gravel in place?
Sure. On the site plan, I think you can see that there are arrows sort of directing from that site pile. That would be the flow proposed once that pile is in place. The way that it typically runs across the site right now, the parking lot, the gravel parking lot that is Sebago tends to run across towards the hotel. And a lot of that gets down into what's called BioCell 2, down at the south of the hotel. The lot kind of makes a funky jog around the Pizza Plus. There's a bit of flow that goes from that funky jog into what's called BioCell 3. The majority of the flow above all that, so to the north of that, for Sebago, it goes into catch basins and gets treated underneath and ultimately flows out and around to the level spreaders to the east of the site. And then Homewood Suites flows to BioCell number 1, which is up in the northeast corner, and also has a treatment system and gets captured and runs out to the level spreaders as well. That's how the drainage runs currently. There's not going to be much difference with the new proposed gravel pile, and that on the south side of the site, you can't really see it on the way that it's lining up on this draw, on the screen. But just underneath, on that very southern property line, it does head towards Red Brook. But for the most part, we're gonna have erosion control measures all the way around the pile. And this is gonna just allow the flow to go the way that it normally does.
Can you be more specific about the erosion control measures, please?
Sure. We're looking at either bark mulch or silt fences, and we're gonna double up per the staff's request. On the east side of the gravel pile, as it would flow towards Red Brook. Double up with either bark mulch or silt fences.
Thank you. And can you tell me, relatively speaking, how long will this, let's call it an experiment, or you said field test, how long is it planned to occur for?
That I'm not completely sure of. I think it's going to depend on the results of the test, but I am told perhaps in the 6-month timeframe. Which may lead to a longer, it may, the results of that might lead to having that pile there a little bit longer to preload, depending on what they see.
Thank you.
You done, Noah?
Yeah, I share the concerns that you expressed at the beginning, but I'm done with my particular questions. Thank you.
I thank you. I'm going to go back to the concerns I raised at the beginning. We have another site in Scarborough that was preloaded and was going to be taken care of pretty fast. And that was even a case where we saw the sketch plan and had a complete review and approved the process. And 3 years later, it's still a pile of gravel. This you're asking us to take on faith that you're going to be able to remove the loam that's currently there without changing the water flow. Again, I see that you're removing it. I don't see what happens. I don't see how. I don't see how that's going to happen. I don't see what happens to the water. It's to the south of the site. It's more likely that once that hill is out of the way, we will have more water heading towards Red Brook. Don't know. It's not something that we can see here. We've got sort of a floor plan, an estimation as to where the hotel is going to go. Doesn't look as though you're planning on any curb cuts, which is good. Are you planning on leaving the pizza restaurant up?
Yes.
That will stay.
Okay. I'll go back and state my preference that we see this. We see our questions answered. You've answered them verbally. We see them in a plan. We see them in a full proposal. That you work with the planning staff, that we see the original study. We see what you're trying to understand and what you're trying to determine from the original study for Homewood. And by putting a gravel pit, a gravel pile in here. And I'm not going to say that we won't let you put a gravel pile in there as a preload, but I don't like the idea of it standing by itself, frankly, even with a performance guarantee. I want to see a much more complete application coming in. And I'm going to ask my colleagues just generally to nod if that's the same thing they would like to see.
Okay.
And know as that a nod, I can't tell. You just, put your finger up like that.
Yes, it's a nod for sure.
Thank you. So let me suggest that you fill out this application in more detail. Give us a time frame for a phasing for the hotel construction.
Okay.
More information about what you propose to have there. Right now, you're talking about a proposed hotel, 4-story, 113 rooms. As we start to look at that, we're going to also start to see whether you've planned adequately for parking and access to the hotel. So there's a lot more stuff that's going on here. I understand that you would like to get things going faster, that you would like to get some things determined in time to do perhaps a good build this summer. But we meet every 3 weeks.
Are you suggesting that we can still maintain a separate application for the preload itself? Or do you think
I'm
about-
suggesting that it not be a separate application, that it be part of a larger site plan application, a larger sketch plan application.
Okay.
Not the full site plan, but enough on a sketch plan application that includes what's
Okay.
going on here
Sure.
and the hotel and the access, a bit about the parking. Certainly, I think you've heard that there's a lot of concern about stormwater
Yep.
and the direction that it's traveling because of the proximity of Red Brook.
Mhm.
You're not the first people who have come to us with a proposal for this site. So we're familiar with some of the issues attached to it. So I really encourage you to spend some time working with the planning staff. I think I would like to see something there. It's been kind of a vacant lot for a while with scrub trees growing up. It would be very nice to have a good-looking building and a good-looking hotel there for Scarborough. But I would like to feel comfortable voting for it.
So you're really looking, so we'll be looking for this in the site, sketch plan application, not necessarily the formal site plan application.
Correct. A
So that we-
good,
okay.
solid sketch plan
Okay.
application, and the planning staff will be able to help you fill in what that actually looks like. We listen to them very carefully.
Okay. Believe me, I would like to see something there as well. I did the Homewood Suites as well as the Sebago at that time, and I've been waiting.
Well, we approved another thing there a while ago, and then
I heard.
when this
yeah.
came forward, we found out that they had withdrawn their application. So yes,
Okay.
we would like to see something there.
I think we're all
And
waiting.
I think we can get there.
Okay.
I really do think we can get there, but we need to have the comfort that the ordinances of Scarborough are being followed, that the site is being protected, that our wetlands are being protected. And I look forward to seeing what you bring back to us.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda, and this is a really short agenda. MEVS Solar requests a utility scale solar site plan review for a 1.95 megawatt AC solar project on land behind 22 West Beach Ridge Road. The property is further identified as Assessor's Map R42, Lot 2D for the town.
Thank you. So MEVS is back in front of the planning board with a revised site plan for their utility scale solar system. At the previous meeting, the planning board had requested that the orientation be revised to provide access off of West Beach Ridge Road, as well as avoid the, or I suppose I should say include the 100-foot wildlife and wetland setbacks as recommended by the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. The applicant has provided a plan that meets those. It still requires a utility corridor connection via Cranberry Pines Road. Staff has left previous detailed comments in the memo from the previous submission, just so if the planning board is comfortable with this orientation of the project, that those details can be submitted for the next meeting. And with that, I would turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And for the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Steve Barrett with Barrett Energy Resources Group, representing MEVS Solar. I also have Dick Waterhouse here, who's the landowner, and Chad Chabazi from Synergy Power, which is the parent company for the project, remote from California. So we took to heart the request from the planning board from the last meeting to in particular, see if we could present a project that preserved the 100-foot buffers from the streams that are on the project. And in order to do that, the largest contiguous pieces of the property with sufficient setbacks are actually on the northern side. So we have identified 2 solar arrays, subarrays on the north. And conveniently, because staff also asked if we could look at accessing the project from West Beach Ridge Road, the plan provides for accessing from the north. So now we have a project layout which limits the impacts of crossing the streams. The previous array and project had us crossing 2 streams in the south. Now we'll be using the existing access road from West Beach Ridge. So we actually don't create any new stream crossings with the new layout. Again, as opposed to the previous layout where we had 2 road crossings. As we stated at the board meeting last time, our interconnection with CMP is at Cranberry Pines. So we still have to bring the electrical interconnection to Cranberry Pines. So we will have an overhead line extending from where the arrays are now on the northern side of the property down to Cranberry Pines. We also discussed a portion of this land as being not having clear title. So in order to avoid that area and have an easement that goes from Cranberry Pines to the area of Mr. Waterhouse's property, which does have clear title, we have to cross into private landowner's land to the south, and then about a 500-foot long easement between Mr. Waterhouse's property and Cranberry Pines, have an easement on a private landowner's land. We have an agreement in principle with that landowner. We've provided him with an offer, and he's verbally or by email said that it's acceptable to him. So we have confidence that we can proceed with this plan and that it's more environmentally protective. It meets what the planning board asked for as far as preserving the 100-foot buffers and also limiting our stream crossings.
Thank you. This is an item that is open for public comment. I don't see anyone in the room, pretty much period right there. Are there any people online who would like to make a comment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. May it please the board. We appreciate the opportunity to come back with this updated plan. My name is Chad Chabazi. I lead late stage development for Synergy. I think we try to incorporate, like Steve said, all of the requests made. And especially one thing that we're really pleased with is maintaining the buffers for the streams. The fact that Steve mentioned that I'll reiterate, the crossings as well as limited. And like Steve mentioned, we do have an agreement with the in principle with the landowner with respect to the easement to avoid the the adverse possession property that Mr. Waterhouse owns. He's been paying the property taxes on that site on the lower side for over close to 50 years. But we felt it would be cleaner just to avoid having to go through a quiet title action. So we do have an agreement in principle with the Hamir family to use their property and then come up onto Mr. Waterhouse's property. So I think with that being said, we're excited about this project. The power off takers, again, are local businesses and municipal entities. They've signed their power purchase agreements. They'll be receiving a considerable discount to the retail rate that they're paying. And then the environmental attributes of this project have been stated previously to the benefit of the community. So we're excited about pursuing this project with the town.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Yeah, I did see that. Allowed to talk? Bill, you should be good to talk.
All right, good. Yep, I was muted. Sorry, my camera's not working, and I'm recovering from COVID, so I couldn't come in. Just a couple things I wanted to say.
Excuse me, could you give your name, please?
Oh, yep, Daniel Bell. I live at 17 West Beaches Road, Scarborough,
Thank you.
Maine. Just a couple things in general. I very much support the solar farm installation. I think it's a win-win in many categories. I think it's a good use for Mr. Waterhouse's land. It's going to be low after the initial build. It'll be a low impact, low visual, and low sound impact. However, I do have one request and a comment. Where the access comes out on the West Beaches Road, I'd ask the contractor to take a little closer look at that because there's a utility pole that might need to be moved. I know when the logger trucks were coming out, they were really having a hard time turning around that utility pole that's right out at the corner of Beaches Road and that access road, because that access road goes between the fire water tank and a utility pole. So it's a real tight turn. So they might want to take a look at that and see if there's something that needs to be done or if the water tank needs to be moved or whatever. The other thing that I'm requesting is for this is that this be gate accessed at the actual West Beaches Road entrance, not further in. Really, this is a solar farm. It really should only be accessed by the vendor and Mr. Waterhouse. And I think it would be wise to have that gated right at that point so that we don't have any issues with people going down there and using the property for unintended purposes, because obviously the road's going to have to be developed more. And then there's going to be turnarounds and stuff. So I would just ask that it be gated right there at probably right behind where the fire water tank is. And that's it. I think this is a great project. I actually think both plans are great and they should be both built. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I do believe there has been a recommendation made in some of the documents that we have that would put the gate a lot closer to Beach Ridge Road for the very same reasons that you're talking about. So that likely will be a subject at the next meeting. Anybody else online? No one?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, This is Chad from Synergy. We can definitely accommodate both those requests. We just work with the landowner to come up with a good plan on the gate where that's going to be located, whether it's right, next to West Beach or a little bit further south. We under NEC, we do have to have the site fence, so that will also occur per the town standards.
Thank you. I will turn this over to board members. Questions? Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me just, for some clarity, what you're really looking for right now is the board's okay on the new siding.
Yes.
And any questions that you might have that have been raised in some of the documents, so that when you come back to us with the completed plan, you're pretty sure you're in good shape. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically in our initial application, we submitted the stormwater analysis and many other things for the first site. And now we would like to get kind of concurrence that you guys are looking okay with the second site, and then for the next meeting and the next packet that we submit, we would submit all those other studies so that we could wrap things up on this.
All right, thank you. I just, that was my understanding. I wanted to make sure we were clear on that. So now let me turn it over to the board, and I'm just going to look for raised hands on this. And I see raised hands from Rick Meinking.
Yeah, I'm okay with this new approach coming in from the West Beach Ridge Road. I think that's the smart way to go. I did notice a simulation here for a fire truck. When you come back, can you add, and I assume the concern is around these two turnarounds. Can you actually do the auto simulation of that? Want to make sure that the ladder truck can make its way all around. But I noticed you had included that in this packet, so I wanted to comment on that. I don't know about that pole moving, but I'll take, you'll figure it out when you come back if you need to move that CMP pole from the entrance there. But I'm okay with this approach on this, and look forward to seeing the full plan along with the vegetation and the decommissioning and all of that stuff that goes along with the utility grade ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Jim, go ahead.
I don't have anything specific, Madam Chair, just to mimic Mr. Meinking's comments about the coordination with CMP for potential relocation, that utility toll that Mr. Bell brought up in that conversation. Otherwise, I'm happy to see that everything is outside of the 100-foot setbacks from all the water, all the resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Noah?
Hi, thanks. Just for the applicants, just so you know, I joined the board in between the time of your first appearance and now. So I apologize if my questions were previously addressed, but I have a few that I'd like to ask. The first is about the fencing. I read the document about the fencing that you've described, and I've also read a really clear document of best practices produced by the Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. And I wanted to just confirm that your fencing plan is a product of that document.
Yeah, I think in our original application, we proposed a standard chain link fence, but based on the comments of staff as well as the board members, we will propose a wildlife fence, large mesh fence that more easily allows smaller mammals and reptiles to pass through the fence, but still keeps deer out. And we wouldn't want deer to get inside. So that's a recommendation from Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and we'll be specifying that. And we've done that for other projects. So typically we respond to local board requests on that, and that's what we'll propose for this project.
Great, thank you. So my second question is about management. You have very clearly described how the utility corridor will need to go through some of the more sensitive properties. And my question is how will that corridor be maintained over time? Will it be trimmed? Will it be sprayed with glyphosate? What will be your management plan for that? And then the same question goes for actually the ground around the panels.
Yeah, I mean, we employ mechanical mowing types of, or mechanical management procedures like mowing. So the solar farm itself will need to be mowed once or twice a year during the growing season. And the utility corridor, probably not as often, but we would need to make sure that woody vegetation doesn't get established there. So that would probably be mowed maybe once a year, maybe less than that. But we'd want to keep it maintained so that vegetation doesn't grow up and obstruct the utility lines.
And so I just want to confirm here that management plan excludes the need for spraying entirely.
Yes, that's true.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, I guess one other question about that utility line, since it is going through a second owner's parcel. I would like to know more about what habitats that's passing through in that, because these are still going to be ground mounted, right? And so there will be disturbances to the ground to hold those poles. It seems like that's
The line for the private landowner is actually going to be underground.
underground.
So that portion is going to be underground. It's to this. Yeah, it's basically south where Cranberry Pines Road is, along Elizabeth and Akarat Hamir's property, to the south over there, where you see it's following the line. If you could see the road that's that you can see now, if you shifted it over about 100 foot to the west, it would follow a 20-foot wide easement underground until we get to Mr. Waterhouse's property. We could show it on the next layout for you to review.
And have you confirmed that there are no significantly mapped vernal pools or wetlands in that trajectory?
Yes. Well, when we had our the biologist, we actually had her review both the surrounding area and also the area proper.
And you have a report that demonstrates this?
We have a report for the existing site, and we can have it as a condition of approval for the but we're going underground, so we wouldn't even be impacting wetlands or any sort of we're not going to be impacting there's no direct impact to any wetlands since we're going underground in the property.
Yeah, I guess I would just say that it's a 20-foot easement adjacent to the property line. So the biologists walk the entire property. So they were right along that property edge.
Yeah, so we would actually have the biologist go 100 foot on each side, just to see if to make sure, because we have this happen all the time, Mr. Perlett. So we have to move things. So we actually ask for buffer evaluations from our biologist.
Okay, I would love to be able to see that report. I'm not doubting you. I just think that'd be a helpful part of the
and if it's not covered, again, if it's not covered in the report, we can provide it to you and show you, because again, we're going underground, so we're not impacting. There's not going to be any poles that are going to be in the ground. So
So
there's
I-
not gonna be a direct impact to let's, for example, if there were wetlands on the west side of that property line, we wouldn't be putting any poles in those wetlands.
So I apologize for my lack of knowledge of this method. When you say you're going underground, does that involve digging a trench the length of the way, or do you remotely drill from?
It could be a trench, or it could just be a boring method, so we can bore under the ground and put the lines under the ground that way as well.
Okay. Great, thank you.
And then the rest of the site would be meadowed habitat.
Meadow habitat.
Right. Like, for example, where the modules are, we typically do a hydroseed mix where the modules are. And then there's a meadowed habitat. And I believe we have to also do we have a plan in place for a pollinator friendly plan with respect to the project itself as well.
That's great to hear. Can you just tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, Steve, do you want to get into that as well on the requirements and what we're doing?
Sure. Yeah, we hired a biologist to prepare a pollinator-friendly habitat for the solar array after it's constructed. And so what we presented was a plan that shows where different species would be planted, and then the different seed mixes that would be used, and a couple of different local providers of those seed mixes. Basically, they're wildflower plants that would attract pollinators and have a significant amount of native species. So we actually have the plan and the management associated with planting the pollinator-friendly habitats and then managing the habitats, all of that will remain. It doesn't matter that we're switching the sites, but we have to provide a revegetation plan for the new areas. So we will be including that in the next plan set.
When you say native species, are you referring to native pollinators, or are you referring to the seed mix being composed of native plant species?
The seed mix being composed of native plant mix.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is that it, Noah?
Yes, thank you.
Are you in general agreement with the new siting? Understanding that the old siting was down where where you can see the streams, a couple of them are perennial and the others are dry up in August. So they,
Yes, yeah. I mean, I read the document that
Okay.
clearly described the previous plan and the current plan. And I understand the changes.
are you in agreement with them?
Yes.
The new siting? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you folks for the care that you took with this, and the fact that you found another way to put the solar array in there, leaving the appropriate buffers and not disturbing the streams. In addition to the trout and a couple of the streams, a couple of the others actually function as nurseries. So that's I really appreciate that effort to preserve an area of Scarborough that will be kind of the watershed of the Nonsuch there. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for listening very carefully to us and to the staff. I noticed that I believe it was Haley Ward had a fair amount of comments. I was just wondering if you had any questions about any of them before we send you on your merry way to complete your application.
Yeah, no, I don't think we have any comments. I mean, I think a lot of them had to do with things that need to be updated on the plan. So we didn't want to proceed with any of that, obviously, until we had a plan to work on. So, yeah.
All right, are you comfortable? You ready to come back to us? with
Ye-
the full plan?
We are, yes.
Very good. We'll see you then.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Next, can't believe I'm saying this at 7:25. Next item on the agenda is the staff report.
Thank you. So the next planning board meeting is going to be Monday, March 13th. There are some ordinance changes that are undergoing review by the ordinance committee and will perhaps make their way to town council in March or April. Those include the fuel cell technology that was forwarded from the sustainability committee, as well as the hotel motel conversion to multifamily. In terms of building permits, the subdivision for 124 Sawyer, which was approved, I think in October of 2021, finally got its building permits last week. So they'll be getting underway fairly soon. And then in terms of certificates of occupancy, Pat's Pizza got their certificate of occupancy. Funny enough, they were also approved in the October, November timeframe of 2021. So that's it for the staff report. I don't know if Angela has anything else.
Just, I guess I'll add, there's going to be probably a flurry of ordinances coming up. We are under a new permit for our stormwater, our federal and state permitting for for stormwater management. And so with that permit comes some more strict or stringent enforcement of our stormwater and erosion sediment control rules. And it sounds like this board obviously deals with that a lot. And I think it will actually give clearer direction and help development kind of navigate that, where instead of having staff kind of reiterate, here's what you should be doing, then spelling some of that out, I think it'll be helpful, I think, for planning board moving forward in the future. And so you'll probably be seeing a few of those over the next probably 6 months, I would say, coming through. So
Thank you. Minor development reviews.
Yes, so the only minor development review we are aware of at this point, which we've been communicating with the applicant, but have yet to receive a formal application, is for IDEX. In the site plan that was approved back in early 2022, there was a road that wrapped around the rear of the building where a lot of delivery trucks were going to be going. IDEX now wants to put a small nitrogen pad there. So that's going to be proposed in the next couple of weeks here. They're going to have to slightly realign the access way in the back there, jutting out. You can barely even tell that it's not straight anymore, but and then jutting finally back to where it previously was aligned. So IDEX will be coming in for a minor development review. For administrative amendments, Hannaford, formerly at 417 Payne Road, formerly Shaw's, they've come in requesting addition of a small clink building as they start their interior work. Yep. And that's it.
Thank you. Administrator, we've got that correspondence.
Not at this time.
Planning board comments.
Well, I want to get done before 7:30, so I'm not going to say a word. Not that.
Comment?
I have no comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Noah?
No, nothing.
No, and I have no comments. Motion to adjourn,
Move to adjourn.
second?
Yeah.
Doreen?
Rachel Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Rick King.
Yes.
Jim Hebert
Aye.
and Noah Perla.
Yes.
All right, at 7:29, we're adjourned.
Well done. Have a good evening, everyone.